The Nexus now down to 6 members after Darren Young was eliminated from that lineup this week after John Cena defeated him. So just what are the chances of these guys in the future? Will they be world title holders? Maybe some of them will just be US belt holders, perhaps TV titles. I don't know, but what are the legit purpose for these guys going forward in the coming years?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see now that we're down to 6 mofos in the Nexus stable how it pans out. You have to wonder why they picked Darren Young to be the one to get the beat down. You know, Heath Slater would have been a good, probably a better victim. I think there's a bit of mileage with Darren Young, but unfortunately it's not to be the case. And although it was Cena versus the other coloured Cena, he obviously came out the worst and definitely didn't reap the rewards of that match.
Indeed, Wade Barrett, of course, took on Chris Jericho and won. So Chris Jericho once again in that jobbing role. But again, a good thing for him to be putting a guy like Wade Barrett over. And Wade Barrett is a guy who has a huge chance in the future. Here's a guy who has the size and the extreme kind of, I think, look as well. I mean, he isn't the average guy. He really is a WWE guy I can see going all the way, certainly in terms of World Heavyweight Championships, without a doubt. As for WWE Championships, I think with the amount of time that Nexus have got over the past few months, then they have to be thinking about putting him in there in title runs. And I think maybe some point soon we're going to see him perhaps even beat Cena.
Yeah, and he's got a big match on the cards after winning that big match at the pay-per-view. That lets him have a title shot at a pay-per-view, and I think he definitely is the bright star in a cloudy sky with the rest of Nexus, especially when you look at people like Otunga and Slater. But what next for Darren Young really is the question. Where does this guy, what's left for him really?
Darren Young, of course, did his best to defeat John Cena this week. We all knew going in that perhaps it was going to be Darren Young jobbing. No great revelation there. But Darren Young taken out of the Nexus lineup, and like you say, where's he going? Is he going to be somebody who will end up on SmackDown, or maybe just the odd Superstars appearance, or perhaps indeed it's time for Darren to go back to FCW? Of course, he did very well to get that NXT Season 1 call-up, and indeed to come from FCW to the big show. It's got to have been a huge deal for him. I have to wonder, what will he do? And again, I can't find any answers straight away.
Yeah, well, I don't see him sticking around in Raw really, and unless they've got big things planned for him, and he is the dark horse of Nexus, and he's the one that they're really behind, because sometimes on the opposite side, when you get the beat down and you get the boot out, you can go on to bigger and better things. And we've seen that over many stables like Evolution and the Four Horsemen, etc. Even Legacy. But then it could be the other side, might be back down to FCW, or it might be a quick release for poor Darren Young. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Now, Michael Tarver worked a match this week on Raw with Daniel Bryan, and actually I thought Tarver did quite well. He has a kind of a quick way of moving around the ring, very athletic as well, and I think maybe he's been overlooked. He just hasn't had the airtime that I think the other guys have. Again, another thing I noticed is that Tarver has a really good sort of confidence on the mic as well. I'm just amazed these days that it seems to be that the guys that they end up bringing to TV now, it's never a case that they have really poor mic skills. They all seem really matured on that topic almost straight away.
Yeah, but then they let it slip with some people like Ezekiel Jackson. But I think it's how believable some of these guys are. Tarver, definitely more believable than poor Ezekiel, wherever he is these days. Probably Superstars or something, but they did give him a shot at the ECW championship, which he did win, and probably the highlight of his career. But where is he now? That is the question. And you got to wonder for the likes of Michael Tarver, will he be utilised in the correct manner?
Heath Slater also in action, as were all the Nexus guys this past Monday night on Raw. And Heath Slater sort of paired up with Edge, which I thought was quite interesting. Now, a lot of people have said that, like a lot of guys with long hair, that Slater's the next Shawn Michaels, he's the next Edge. He certainly isn't the next Triple H, but without a doubt, Slater has got something, doesn't he? And I can't remember a whole lot of red-haired performers as well. Maybe guys that had dyed hair. Of course, Sheamus is in there, and I think maybe he's the top guy right now for the ginger hair people. But who else has had that sort of gimmick? And again, they're calling him a rock star. Now, John Morrison hasn't really successfully established that, so I suppose Heath Slater, do you think he can do it?
Well, if they can't make a rock star out of John Morrison after so much time of trying very badly, then they're definitely going to have their work cut out with poor Heath Slater. He looks more like Jesus. He certainly doesn't look like a rock star anyway, that's for sure. But guys with red hair, I can't really think much. The Terry Taylor and his Red Rooster days, I suppose that little strip counts as red, doesn't it, really? But besides that, not a whole bunch comes to mind. So maybe the future is bleak for poor Heath Slater.
Now, Skip Sheffield and Daniel Otunga, David Otunga, that's an old joke going back quite a while on WrestleDope. But those guys took on... Who do they take on? I'm all lost at this point. R-Truth and John Morrison. Now, we just mentioned John Morrison. I know this is one probably everybody got a long time ago, but I just realised that R-Truth and John Morrison, why they're paired up, they're both musicians. Now, it never occurred to me before, but it's irrelevant to Nexus. But either way, I think Sheffield and Otunga... As we've said before, Sheffield is a guy who can be in that main event tomorrow, if you like. I think he could draw as well if you make him seriously aggressive and maybe even not talk that much. Just mow through guys. He could be the next Goldberg.
It's true, and yeah, I've always been a fan of Skip, and we think we kind of backed him here at the WrestleDope HQ from the very get-go. Even probably... Well, no, probably not from the FCW days, but certainly from the start of NXT Season 1. Now, here's something that I didn't realise about this musician thing. I think it's quite funny now that you mention it, but I do struggle to figure out why Morrison just gets the brunt of these team of factions between Miz and Morrison, and now R-Truth and Morrison, and even in the middle he had a run with somebody. It's like they just... When they don't have space or somebody's out of a title picture, they just make these team-ups, and it just bugs the shit out of me when guys get stuck in a mix. I know sometimes, like Beer Money, when it was started at the start, I didn't think that was going to last, just another team-up, but surprisingly they really turned that one around. But Morrison and Truth, I don't think they can do that, really.
So sick of seeing those two paired up at this point. It looks like to be the program of the year for those guys, and R-Truth, at least he's getting pay-per-view appearances, so it's got to be good. But Morrison was getting them anyway. He didn't need this, and perhaps he could have done better with a singles push. But
I do have one thought before we move off to that subject, though. Otunga and Sheffield. One thing that did strike me is they could be a legit tag team. Size-wise, it kind of reminded me of the old Warlord and Barbarian kind of Powers of Pain, I think, was the gimmick they had, or the name at least. But now with that unified tag titles down to one set of belts, and a bit more legit, and maybe building on a bit more of a legit tag team division, why not put those guys, if Nexus is going to crumble and they have to find spots for them, why not make a tag team with those guys? They're big enough, and you know, it's been ages since we've seen a tag team that size, but I definitely think they worked well together on Raw, Otunga and Sheffield, and yeah, it could be good.
Good idea, and Powers of Pain is exactly what you could see there. The size and shape, as you mentioned, perfect match, and I think those guys could complement each other well. You could make a tag team that could be quite forceful and be the tag team that goes through everybody else. We know from Nexus that they're capable of doing that sort of thing, so it would be believable. It would be something that I could buy. I felt like Skip Sheffield is probably Vince's favourite. We take that from what we know about what's been said by Meltzer and everybody else. But basically, I think that Sheffield is a guy who's not going to have any trouble. Unless there are any sort of rule-breaking problems, but whether or not Sheffield will hang on, I suppose, will remain to be seen. I'm not so sold on Otunga, I'm afraid. I just feel like he works very sort of clumsily. It's almost like he moves around like a Big Show, and maybe it feels like he's kind of working like a big man, whereas maybe he isn't. But I do think the star power and the celebrity is something that could sell him for years, and indeed more power to him.
Yeah, he's not very believable. I don't think he's not very convincing when the mic, when the cameras are on him. Well, really in his face on him, facial expression wise, he doesn't really sell the whole heel Nexus thing very well. But at the same time, when he did the Raw guest host show, he was great. I thought he really turned it up a notch, and he's a guy I think either needs to be on his own and push to the moon, kind of like a Batista, or else maybe turf him in a tag team there with old Skip and see how that rolls.
So as for future opportunities for these guys, let's pick who perhaps we thought would be a world title holder. I've mentioned Wade Barrett. I can see him with that World Heavyweight Championship without a doubt. As for other guys, are there any future WWE champions? I suppose it's very possible that Sheffield will have the Sun Belt maybe one time or other, and also I'd probably tip anyone else. To be honest, I don't think so. I think it's maybe US title for Gabriel, and Tarver might never get anything.
No, I don't see Tarver with a belt. Justin would have been the one I would have said, but then when I thought about it again, probably not actually. As far as the rest of them, Heath Slater, forget about that. And Sheffield, yeah, possibly. It's early days.
Early days for the guys from the Nexus. I did think it was interesting how some workers were commenting how basically they've made 7 names in such a quick time, and it just shows you how powerful NXT has been so far.